other intergovernmental organizations like United Nations, different kinds of specialized agencies like Food and Agriculture Organization, WTO, World Intellectual Property Organization, some examples. Then there are transnational organizations, which refers to international organizations, international non-governmental organizations, and then great role play these multinational enterprises. Also very active from the governance point of view are social movements, trade unions, and also we should not forget scientific network. In analyzing the dynamics of sustainable development in any sector, it is necessary to take into account the complex, sometimes conflicting interests and perspectives that invariably exist. This requires careful consideration of the different actors involved, the context in which they operate, and the ways in which they interact. In the context of developing countries, this involves examination of the environmental, social, and economic factors that have shaped and will continue to shape the development of sustainability. The context of the developing countries in general is characterized by 5 factors: a lower than average per capita income, high volatility, immature capital market, rapid growth, and higher than average return for investors. Developing countries as well as business organizations are also at different levels of understanding and implementing sustainability strategies. These differences are illustrated, for example, in several comparison indexes published by different purposes. Well, if we then look what kind of activities and how the different actors can change the dynamic of sustainability process in society. Well, first, their role arises from setting in motion a discussion in society or in media. Some actors like NGOs can raise on the public agenda a new issue of sustainability. They can monitor compliance of rules and regulations by companies, like multinational companies. They can set in motion a legal process of promoting the implementation of international rules in domestic country. So we have different kinds of activities in which these actors are involved. The role of different actors is usually, or quite often it is connected to the regulatory governance of sustainability, both in national markets, in the global value chains, and in the international context. It is quite natural that public entities with regulatory power can set obligations to the regulated target groups and in this way disturb the balance of doing business. For example, new emission standards for vehicles set in motion the need for the technical changes and innovation processes. However, the role of different kinds of NGOs, like Greenpeace or well, I don't know what kind of NGOs you have very active in India, but you know that Amnesty International is one good example. They have, the role of these NGOs has risen remarkably, first in standard setting, in implementation of different kinds of sustainability standards, in monitoring compliance, as well as in awareness raising campaigns organized in different parts of the world. Well, here is one example of the comparison of different countries, how well or how badly they are complying international standards or standards developed by private actors, just as an example. Then this is one example of the NGO activism. It is called Behind the Brands campaign, which is organized as part of Oxfam's Grow campaign to help create a world where everyone has enough to eat. This campaign compares 10 most important and well-known companies with worldwide brands, and they this NGO wants to raise awareness of consumers, so how well or how badly these companies are complying the sustainability rules. And then this is also a good carrot to the companies, so that they try to improve year after year their processes. However, setting new regulation or standards is only the beginning. Implementation and compliance of them is the crucial part of the change process. In the implementation stage, the role of NGOs is crucial. NGOs may offer advice and guidance to the companies, co-create new markets for distinctive responsible products, and lobby within governments. NGOs can also launch awareness-raising marketing campaigns to consumers and compare multinational enterprises and their compliance of sustainability standards. In summary, all these activities of the private sector entities imply the political role of the actors in global governance. Each of them play a significant role in their network and in the sustainability regime. The change in the dynamic of sustainability may emerge top-down or bottom-up, or as a combination of both. In order not to lead into chaos, the ever-going change process should be managed in some way. This leads to the second topic of my presentation, the need for the development of new kind of skills and leadership. Well, how should we understand the leadership? Well, here is a couple of definitions which I found, which I can easily agree with. Leadership for sustainability requires leaders of extraordinary abilities. These are leaders who can read and predict through complexity, think through complex problems, engage groups in dynamic, adaptive organizational change, and have the emotional intelligence to adaptively engage with their own emotions associated with complex problem solving. Then another researchers emphasize that leadership is context dependent rather than a fixed quality and behavior of an individual. They continue that a search for sustainability leadership and its development can begin by setting aside these dominant assumptions about strength as well as the idea of a senior leader, to consider leadership as something shared, an episodic social process for participation in which we can all become competent. As I said before, and as is emphasized in these definitions, sustainability is a contextual element for the business today and in the future. So this is my favorite slide because it is theory behind the system level change and system level innovations. It's by Professor Giels from Netherlands, and it tries to show that how we should understand the society from the macro level. Landscape, it is called landscape development, takes place in the macro level. Then socio-technical regime is the way of doing business. And then niche level, where the innovations can start. Well, business ethical issues have risen to the agenda as a consequence of need for more sustainable production and consumption in the whole global economy. Business people have to solve challenging problems, and they should have new kind of capabilities. So we have, for example, this global climate change, health and food problems, etc., what we have already heard during these 2 days. So we need different kinds of innovations. We need company innovations, but we need also innovations in different kinds of processes. So according to this theoretical framework, if we can combine these different simultaneous innovations in different levels of the society, maybe we can achieve this kind of system level change, which is needed in order to achieve all these challenging global sustainability goals. And what we have tried in our university, Turku of Applied Sciences, what we have tried to do, we have tried to develop this proactive management competencies and which are used behind our curricula and especially in my own proactive law and proactive contracting lectures. So, which I already mentioned, this general proactive behavior competencies, which I think that are crucial in order to manage the complex governance system of global business. We need multidisciplinary analysis skills, cross-professional communication, creative thinking, and outcome orientation. We need these both in the company level. Company people should have this in order to improve their management processes, how they can then integrate all the sustainability goals on their daily practices. So I think that this is then maybe using these competencies and developing these, we may change the existing systems in some way. So we need proactive people and we need proactive systems. Maybe then we can achieve these sustainability goals mentioned already in the keynote speech. So this was what I wanted to share with you, so I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Professor Kaisa Sosa has discussed about the actors, their activities, and the role of leaders. So you may be having some questions. You can take up few questions, please. Any question?
You mentioned that to incorporate the proactivity slide, it was very mesmerizing. So you mentioned that to include creative thinking, core professional communication in companies, and in your college also you practice to do that. So how do we inculcate such practices in the education system?
University, we have this European project in which we developed teaching materials and handbook for teachers. And when we were developing these teaching materials, we kept in mind these competencies which we wanted to increase in our university and in those 7 universities in Europe. Okay, so we developed a handbook for students in which we then try to use these competencies, and then we also developed a handbook for teachers in which we describe different kinds of pedagogical methods which should be used when you are lecturing or when you are teaching or when you are working with students. So in that way we thought that okay, each partner university they can use or they can leave those materials, and at least we have used this, we have been teaching these 3 different modules in University of Turku. There were proactive law and proactive law course, and then proactive contracting and risk management, and then the third one was ethical issues. So we developed 3 teaching modules, and we have been running those in 5 years. And then we also made an indicator list, so we try to measure that, okay, after these courses, has the competencies of the students, have they improved? So we have some practical, we have experiences how it works.
Sure. Could you, sir, sitting at the computer, hello, sir, could you put up Kaisa's PowerPoint where she had the one model with the proactive?
This relates to your question, what should we do? Well, in my kind of, I challenge people and I say, if the teachers don't change, you will not get proactive behaviors of students. So as long as teachers continue giving lectures and have written examinations, we're not going to get that. So the change starts with teachers. I think teachers are more conservative than a lot of students. So the change has to start, like Kaisa said, they're trying to develop ideas and guidebooks on how can teachers do this. So I think your question is a good question.
I do agree with him. Basically, these are teachers, they need to change first. Yes, please.
Just a question to Kaisa, that are those handbooks available somewhere for everybody?
They are available free in our, they are in internet, because it was funded by European government, so we create something which is common to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll have another presentations by Dr. Ramstrong.
Students, so when I speak, I need those to keep myself in check. Otherwise, I talk for an hour. An interesting part. So you choose which one you will listen to. Well, let's see now. There's a guy called Malcolm Gladwell, and he wrote a book about tipping points. It's called Tipping Point, and it's really dangerous to mention this book because he's writing popular science. And here we have some distinguished professors writing science papers. And I would imagine that in none of those papers you would see as a reference Malcolm Gladwell. You can question his methods, you can question the way he arrives at ideas and conclusions, but he has 2 very interesting ideas that have been driving me for a long time into this, how do we arrive at sustainable development. And he's talking about the tipping point. So he was asking a question that New York City used to be there used to be most crime in the whole of the United States was New York City. But then something happened, and now it's the safest city in the US. And he asked the question, what is the tipping point? What happened that made New York suddenly the safest city? He also asked the question that if you have an influenza virus, you get the flu, it starts somewhere, it grows and grows, and you have a lot of people getting sick, but suddenly the influenza collapses. It stops. So what is the tipping point? What suddenly happens that makes people not get sick anymore? And in his book he said that you cannot really find one thing. Of course, the city of New York, they want to say that, okay, we increase the number of polices and we increase this and this, but they say clearly that the answer is not there. And I've been highly critical for many years about government involvement in any kind of form in development, because in Finland at least, the government spends ridiculous amounts of money on innovation. And the outcome is really ridiculously low. And I think also now you mentioned that the Indian government is spending 60 billion euros or something. I wouldn't be expected to have much coming out of that. The government is important in many ways, that they can sort of say that it's okay to do this, but other than that is. So the really boring part, and why I want to come back to this, is that to me, sustainable development is about the tipping point. When do we get to a point where most people agree and start acting in a way that's sustainable? So what is the tipping point? What happens? What should we do? So my interest has always been in changing things. I used to be at the Applied University of Science, and I changed the whole way, everything in the way that we were teaching. And I realized that the institution, when we talk about institution, we have the government, of course it's an institution, we have laws and regulations, we have the World Trade Organization, all these kind of organizations, but to me the problem is really that if you're talking about government, it has abstract things. Government don't change anything, people change. So we need to go under that one, and they also say that this idea of institutions as drivers for change. Institutions change society. To me, it's ridiculous, because we really are people. Change is about people. Change is about ideas. And change is about how we make change. It's about process. It's about people. It's about ideas. So actually, Lawrence came up with that. He said that you have to stop focusing on this. You're not getting anywhere. You have to understand what people do. In day-to-day, what's your everyday? On Monday at 9 o'clock, what do you do? On Tuesday at noon, what do you do? So he said people, ideas, and the behavior and the ways we do with it. So that's what we need to focus. That has been my interest, both as a practitioner of teaching, how do we change teaching, and also as a researcher trying to understand that how do change happen? How do we come to the point, that tipping point? We're not at a tipping point when it comes to sustainable development. We're not even close. But what will it be that makes us go over the tipping? What makes the influenza virus collapse? What makes New York have least crime in the whole of the US? When are we at the point that we can say, okay, now we're seeing real change? Now you're talking about we need a beautiful world. So what? And it's interesting, you have the word, change the word and you change the minds. So it's interesting, one way to study change is study, do people talk differently? Is there a change in the way that we talk? I used to be 10 years ago, I was in a university where they wanted change. And we helped them to come up to ideas that what are their core values. So they're talking of core values. Trust the students, motivate the students, and give the students power. So that was what they came up with in the official forum. We went back to the coffee room of teachers, they were saying, oh, we need to have exams to students because otherwise they don't read. And we have to make sure, we have to check that they're in the classroom because otherwise they don't. So they had values, but the actions and the words spoke something else. So I could see no change in the words. And that means there's no change in what we do. So this is the boring part. So my interest is really in that, what other kind of rules? When you hear people say that this is not the way we do things here, you know it's about institutions. Or if people say that, okay, welcome to this new job, this is how we work. You know it's institutions at play. You tell people, you expect them to do things. Because people behaving irrational is really time consuming. And everywhere I go, people get really angry at me because I do things differently. So I have a different set of rules than many else. What are the practices? How do we really go about transforming ideas to? And my point of view, if we want to look and try to understand sustainable change, we need to look at networks because we are all connected. society, we have organizations, we have NGOs, we have universities, we have companies, they're all connected in very strange ways. And to me, if you look at it, for me, sustainability is about this circular economy. It's a kind of innovation in the way that we use and exchange resources. So circular economy is a complex, really complex network. Like in New York City and crime, it's really complex. You have police, you have people, you have guns, you have laws, you have city officials, you have people. So you can draw these funny maps. This is not, don't look at the lines, but it's just a representation that networks are really complex. People are really strangely connected to each other. Institutions are connected. Us as market, I'm a business person, I talk about the market, we are the market, but anyway. So you can draw these maps and look at the way sustainability goes. And I'm now going to come to the interesting part, because I'm going to give two examples of how things are interconnected. One is Tesla cars, you know, related to sustainable transportation. The other one is the city of France is concerned about food waste, shortage of food. Because the fact is that we throw away, in the Western world, we throw away 40% of our food. Goes to the trash bin. Think about it, 40%. We would not have any food shortages if we used oil. So France made a decision that you cannot anymore. It's illegal to throw away food. I'll give two examples. Tesla cars as a network, and then what France did with prohibiting or forbidding the waste food. So how it's changed. So, you know, France said this, okay, a couple of years ago. Nobody can throw away food. It's not legal. You get fined. You can't throw away. So that was actually government having a big role. They set up it's not allowed. And it caused chaos, real chaos. Because we have a system that is really good at getting food into the cities and distributing the food. But they have no system of getting the food from the trash can back to the people. So when we're looking at what happened actually is that there's a really interesting things happening, interactions between various institutions, what they do, what kind of ideas they have, and what kinds of rules are. So now they're saying that it's not okay to throw away food. 10 years ago, nobody was thinking about it. Now we have an idea that, well, it's not really good throwing away food. So you can see that we have the waste disposal organizations. In Finland, we have this system that every once a week, a car comes to my house, it empties my trash can, it takes it away. I don't have to throw it out in the street. But they have no idea how to, when the grocery stores have a lot of waste food, they have no idea how to take the waste food back into the system. Right? You have retail stores, they're seeing that by the end of Monday, we open at 9, we close at 9, by the end of Monday, we have tons of food that have to be thrown away. What should we do with it? We can't throw it away anymore. We have innovators, we have small shops, and this is really where my point comes, is that we met with a group of people. They have agreed with a few grocery stores that the grocery stores provides them with waste food. They bring in top chefs, really the most famous chefs in France have promised to come on regular terms, create menus, 3-piece meal menus. You come in, you pay as much as you think you should pay. Pay €1, pay 10, pay nothing, it's up to you. And they're trying to come up with also how can they cooperate with the waste disposal units, because they have no idea how to transport it. How should we store the food that is left over? What should we do with it? How could we make use of everything that we have? So the government made a decision, but that again, it couldn't have been made without the market, without us. Because we said it's okay for the government to make the decision. If we wouldn't say it's okay, we would, in next elections, we would elect somebody that says, screw this, let's not do it. But suddenly we say it's okay to make a decision that we're not throwing it away. So by understanding what happened, we have this small little restaurant that makes lunch for everybody, pay as much as you want. It's an innovation in a way. They bring in top chefs to create the menus. they also had a thing that when they're using everything, so if you have leftover from like apples and stuff, you make your own juice. You have the food, you went there, you press it in, and you make your own juice. What's left over, they leave it outside, they come and take as much as you want. How do they distribute? Because responsibility is also, we shouldn't transport the food all around Paris. It's a big city. It's not as big as Delhi, but it's still big. So there's no waste and no use in traveling around the world. So this is what's happened. We need to study and we need to understand the ideas people have, how they talk to each other, how they share their ideas, and what kind of actions we are taking. And the government has really, they don't have a role in this. They just mess it up. You know. The other one is about Tesla, which is interesting because it's not about technology. The technology has been there for a long time. We have batteries, right? And Elon Musk, he also said that it's not about technology. When he started thinking about how can we make this happen, he realized that there are some things that need to change. One, he realized the time is right because people's ideas have changed. You can see it in social media, how people talk about sustainability. So there has happened a change in minds that expresses itself. So he understood this, and he uses social media as a platform to understand what is in his interest and what we can do. He realized that, okay, we have an idea, but we need to patent. We need to protect our patents because, you know, we make money off it. He said, this is not right. Tesla innovated a lot of times. He said, everybody can use it. It's free. So he created new rules about patents. It's free because he realized that he need other people to innovate also. New technologies. Then he said, okay, that fueling companies, where you go and fuel up your car, they're not going to go along with this. Why? I mean, sell more electricity, sell less oil. It's simple. But he realized that he also needs to create a new idea about where do you